jumping, right?
Yeah, yin's the one where you tore your crotch. Okay, from the top. Hi, and welcome back to Running Rants with Helen. As always, I'm Helen, and this is where I rant and talk about whatever I want. Today, we are in Reno on the ditch trail. I'm getting on an airplane later, so figured I would run here. It's sunny and 32 degrees. And yeah, so thanks to everyone who entered my sock giveaway. There were some great video ideas, but LC Self 510, you win. So if you would like to email me your address, helenmino13@gmail.com, I will send you a box of new and slightly used women's size small socks. Okay, so I want to start this running rant with just a story about how I feel like yoga and running just really intertwined, like during a race. So to start this story, if you're watching, I would love if you could just put your arms up above your head like this, and then comment the timestamp below when you have to put your arms down. So the year was 2021. I started practicing Kundalini yoga that summer in, I think, June. There was like a series of free classes in Olympic Valley, and I taught one of those classes, but I also got to attend one of them, and I had never done Kundalini yoga, and I honestly think that day changed my life. It's like, I guess because like when I'm running, I feel like sometimes I get empty brain and there's just like no thoughts, just jog. And I feel like I've had a hard time like in my everyday life finding that outside of when I'm running. And Kundalini is the only other time where I get just empty brain. Because even sometimes during other like stretchy yoga classes, it's like I have to think a little bit too much of like, oh, is my hip in the right place? Or am I flexing my foot? Or like all of these alignment things. Kundalini, no thoughts, which I love. And so to go over what Kundalini is, it said, I practice the kind like that was given to us by Yogi Bhajan, but it said that we're given these kriyas, and they were given to us from God, and you can do these sets of like postures linked with breaths that give us an intended outcome. So like maybe that outcome is like more joy, more peace, more patience. Like there's pretty much a kriya for anything and everything. So that was my first time doing Kundalini yoga. And then like I was managing the yoga studio that I was teaching at the time. So I was in charge of like hiring new teachers. And after that, I was like pretty hooked on Kundalini, and I couldn't find anywhere like in town to do it. And then it just so happened, my friend Michaela, who also taught at the yoga studio, her friend Hayden was looking to start teaching Kundalini up here because she had just like moved back. So I think she's from Truckee, and she teaches Kundalini. And so I hired her to teach at the studio. So all that summer I was like doing it pretty often, like once a week. And then I was also doing like an online thing where, because also you typically practice a kriya for 40 days and then switch. And so I was doing that on my own. And that is when I learned that absolutely nothing that I have encountered physically is as hard as holding your arms above your head for 10 minutes or 7 minutes. I think it was 7 minutes in that kriya. And like, it's just so hard. And then I was at Broken Arrow. I think I was in third place coming down the last hill, and I was obviously trying pretty hard, and I was like trying to pass Hillary Allen and then pretty much she misheard me because she asked if I wanted to pass and I said no. But she heard yes. And then I had to go. And then I just kept thinking, none of this, this whole race, this whole 46K or whatever it is not as hard as holding my arms above my head for 7 minutes. I don't know if it's been 7 minutes, but I'm sure it's pretty hard by now if you haven't already put down your arms. So I feel like that's a way specifically. But I guess we'll go back to the beginning. When I was in high school, I ran a lot and I didn't really stretch. And my high school coach said, buddy, you got to. You're gonna get hurt. And so I said, yeah, okay. So I started going to yoga. And then there was I think it's called the Merry Christmas Dash. That's a 5K. And I won. And I won a year-long membership to the YMCA for my whole family. And so then I started going to yoga there. And among many other classes, such as Zumba and Drums Alive, not much of a gym girl, but I have always loved a fitness class. Drums Alive was fun though, because you just got to use a drumstick on an exercise ball. It wasn't as hard to follow along as Zumba, because Zumba I just ended up doing jumping jacks in the back. But then my senior year of high school, I didn't have a first or second period. My free membership at the YMCA had ended. And so I started going to a different yoga studio where I think the average age of everyone was 60 plus. And I think it was great because it wasn't really hard, but we would just like do slow stretching. I feel like that's what I needed. Then I went to college. I still was going to yoga. It was like, I didn't have a car my freshman year, so I was like riding my bike to yoga at 5 a.m. like on top of competing. And that was fun. Went to the studio in Midtown Reno. And then I just started thinking about it because even when I was in college, got my degree in geography. My minor is in geology. But I always knew like I didn't really want a computer job. I'm not very good at sitting inside. And so I was like, oh, it'd be fun. I could be a yoga teacher. And I kept thinking like, eventually, someday, I would love to be a yoga teacher. And then I realized you can kind of just do stuff now. And so it was like between my freshman and my sophomore year of college, I got my yoga teaching certificate, my 200 hour, and my aunt lives in Santa Cruz, and so I found a yoga school there, and I lived with her, and I would just, because I was still on the track and cross country team, so I just run to and from yoga school every day all summer, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and that was in 2015. Yes, that was in 2015. And so we're coming up in July, it'll be 10 years of me being a certified yoga teacher. Yeah, then like all through college, I would teach like a class here and there. I like taught a class at a climbing gym. I actually taught aerial yoga for a while, and I was not qualified. I learned how to do that on YouTube. But then a doctor's office hired me to teach aerial yoga, because then people see it on your resume and they're like, oh, you could do that. And I'm like, well, kinda. But I mostly teach vinyasa flow. And yeah, I just feel like the biggest thing for me with yoga is that like it's changed so much, like how I practice and what I practice throughout like the last, I don't know, almost 15 years. And I just feel like that's something that's cool about it is like there really truly is something for everyone. Like I've taught at gyms and there it's like a little bit more fitness focused, and then like I've taught at like yoga studios where like the mental and spiritual side is like a little bit more emphasized. And I feel like depending on where I am in my life or in my training, like that has also had a big impact on the type of yoga I practice. Like when I first started running again, which is almost my 5-year anniversary since I quit, I think it's like April 8th is when I started running again in 2020. I got really into Ashtanga, but I don't practice Ashtanga ever anymore because I truly believe that that practice was made for little boys and I can't do that many jump throughs. And like now, like even right now, like I'm not running as much as I normally do, and so I feel like I want like a more fitnessy class, and so I've been going to hot Pilates, which is not a yoga class, that is a fitness class. But then like when I'm training a bunch, I usually like more restorative classes or yin classes where I get to lay in poses for 5 minutes and fall asleep every time. But I think like the biggest takeaway in like life generally, like not really related to running, is just like that it's all gonna be okay. Like it's all gravy, baby. And that like we can try to have control over our lives or over certain things, but like at the end of the day, we kind of control nothing. And I think like growing up especially, that was like something that I struggled with a lot, and I still do, is like trying to control situations or like, I don't know, just like have like this tight grasp on things. But like I feel like yoga really teaches me that it doesn't matter, like you can't, what's meant to be will be, and you can't mess up whatever is meant for you, and that it's gonna be okay. And I feel like something else too, which like everything is like still a practice, but like you can have your opinions, but like not tying your morality or judgments to those things. And like I always say during my classes, like you can notice the differences like in your left hip to your right hip, but like we're not gonna say that one is good and one is bad, or one's better or worse. They're just different, and we can like leave it at that. And like, yeah, I think going back to the empty brain thing, even like during yoga classes, I still struggle with like I said, just thinking and thinking and thinking. Or like you're laying in Shavasana and you're like going through your to-do list. But I feel like at least yoga for me is like a space where I'm able to sometimes let go of those things. I mean, especially Kundalini, because you can't, I don't know, my brain doesn't work when I'm thinking about breathing that much. Or I'm thinking about how much it sucks down my arms over my head. But yeah, I mean, on top of like just all of the mental things, I feel like I think physically it's good for me too. I would say like in the realm of running, I'm like pretty flexible and have good mobility. In the realm of yoga, I do not. But I also find that it probably makes me a little bit more relatable to my students, because yeah, if I go into frog pose, I want to cry. Yeah, I feel like I've just learned a lot, and like what I've learned has changed, and I feel like I've talked about it. Like going back to when I wasn't running, I started teaching at Alpenflow, which I actually taught there before I lived in Truckee. I was like commuting from Reno, and I ended up leaving for a bit because, well, straight up, I didn't get paid for a long time. I was covering a bunch of classes, but the yoga studio was sold to a new owner. So about a year later, I started going back there, like just as a student, and then was asked if I wanted to teach. And I feel like since I wasn't running, that was like really where I found my sense of community in Truckee, and like where I got to meet people. And yeah, it was just like so welcoming. And I don't know, I think there's something like special about, I don't know, like 45 people in a room all just like doing their little stretches. I think it's cute. And then COVID happened, so then no yoga. And then I was teaching through Zoom, but it's not the same. Although I did get my grandma to start coming to my classes, and that was pretty cool too. Now she's way too into Pilates. Not way too into it, but like she does wake up at 4 a.m. so she can get to Pilates by 6, which I find a little early. But I guess when you're 75, you can go to bed at 7 p.m. And yeah, and then COVID. So then I said, well, shoot, what's a gal to do? And I picked this running thing back up, and here we are. And yeah, I feel like through that, like I said, when I'm training a lot, I do less yoga. For the yoga, I do changes. But I feel like it's cool to have that in my life, like, I guess no matter what's going on.
Okay, for all the big dumb idiots like me who are in your audience, can you give me like 20 to 30 seconds on each type of yoga that you practice and what they are, just very broadly speaking?
Yeah, so number one, you're not a big old dummy. Second of all, yes, so I teach Vinyasa Flow, which is a flow class, except I usually think I teach a little bit of a more chill flow. And so a Vinyasa is a sequence of Chaturanga, up dog, down dog. And you pretty much do that through like between every pose to wash it out. And then, yeah, that's like, I guess not really what I started practicing. I started more practicing Iyengar, which lots of props, you hold poses longer, not really any vinyasas. Then there's Bikram, which is a set of 26 poses that you do in a balls hot room. And the guy who created it, though, bad guy. Also, for me personally, it makes my back hurt. Going from deep forward folds to deep back bends, my spine doesn't like it. Then there is Ashtanga, which is also like a set sequence of poses with a vinyasa between each pose. With Ashtanga, usually that's like, you would do it in like, they call it Mysore. And so you, like the teacher does, like you just know the sequence, and then the teacher walks around, and if your breath is messed up, you're not doing your Ujjayi breath in through the nose, out through the nose, with the sound of the ocean in the back of your throat, then you don't get the next pose. And they walk around and they say, okay, you're ready, you get the next pose. And then you do that. And then there's like the first set, the second set. I didn't do it that way. I just did like the whole first one. So that's Ashtanga. I described what Kundalini is. Then there's Yin, which is like more of a restorative, and you lay down.
Yeah, Yin's the one I tore my crotch doing, right?
Yeah, Yin's the one where you tore your crotch. Yeah, you like sit in restorative poses for like 2 to 5 minutes each. It's supposed to be relaxing, deep stretching. Yeah, I feel like that's like most of the ones in like my general world that I practice or have practiced.
If there's a runner or just someone who watches these that is interested in trying yoga but doesn't know where to start, what would you recommend as a first class? Like what type, and how do you get going?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of like studios will say like beginner or whatever. And I feel like sometimes that helps, although sometimes I feel like they kind of sandbag you and I'm like, the fuck is this? But another thing is like, I think YouTube is a great resource. Like there's so many great yoga teachers, because also like going to a yoga class is expensive. That's like partially why it's nice being a yoga teacher. Like if I sub classes somewhere, then I get a free membership, because I mean, if you just do a drop-in, up here it's like $30 to $35 per class. And if you go like even once a week, like I don't know, that kind of adds up. And so I don't know, sometimes I like going to classes because of the community aspect, but also you can like subsidize going to those classes like with YouTube.
Do you have a favorite YouTube yoga instructor?
Yeah, except I can't remember. It's like yoga with...
I like yoga with Adrian.
Yeah, yoga with Adrian is good. And then there's another lady who does like little Kundalini things, and I feel like her name's like Brioni. That cannot be right. I'll try to link it maybe.
You kind of explain like the physical benefits of it for running. Talk a little bit more about like the community aspect. I feel like when you're so steeped in one sport like running, you're seeing the same people all the time, and you're kind of hearing the same opinions and that kind of stuff. Is there something you really value about your yoga community that's maybe different than your running community?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in Truckee it's a little different because so many of those people like also run or do like endurance sports. So in a way it is a little bit of the same group of people, but yeah, I just feel like it's nice to see people. I mean, like right now I don't have a job. Well, I have a job, but like I don't go to work to see people. And running, like, I mean, I run with my friends like maybe once a week, but that's still not very much. And then yeah, it's the same people. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's nice to see people in like other parts of the community in Truckee, or like when I go visit places, I feel like it's fun to like get a feel for the vibe of their yoga studio. Like when we went to Big Bear, I went to a yoga class there, and that was really fun. Yeah, thanks again to everyone who submitted video ideas. Even if you didn't win, I still might end up using your video idea. And if I do, and you want a pair of socks, I'll send you a pair of socks. Or if we're the same size in Hoka clothing, you could get some pretty sick stuff. I just moved and I realized I have too many items. Yeah, this has been another episode of Running Rants with Helen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah.
I just dislocated my hand.
Karate kick.
Yeah.